You're listening to the Super League Pod, or for 1 week only, the Championship Pod. We go into what we see happening in the second tier this year, with a bit of League One chat mixed in too. We talk about the big names, the dark horses, the old boys who bite back, and the sides we think might be in trouble, as well as sharing your fan views on the weekend's Round 2 action. Plus, we're forced to revisit our Cap Cup predictions, we chat about the upcoming Channel 4 coverage, make our Round 1 Super League guesses, and dig deep on canal adjacent beer options. What more could you need to get you through getting back to the commute? Get strapped in, it's SLP time! Hello listeners, this is episode 327 of the Super League Pod, or it's episode 1 of season 9, episode 2 of season 9, because we had the season preview and prediction show last week. Go back and check that out if you haven't already. This week we're going to mostly be talking about the Championship, so we have got supporter of Championship Club, Alan, on, along with myself, Mark. Hiya Alan, you alright?
I'm very well, hello, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are to everybody.
Wherever and whenever, yes, exactly. Yeah. We've got a bit of a exciting rebrand to talk about before we get into any rugby league stuff.
I was going to say, someone's going up in the world.
It took us by surprise because we hadn't edited last week's rundown to put in the rebrand. But do you want to tell everyone about our best friend?
Yep, so your episode of Super League Pod is supported by Rob's Megastore. Rob's Megastore stocks a wide variety of toys, stationery, arts and craft ideas, pet accessories. This is different. I'm used to it being the other way around. Arts and craft ideas, pet accessories, books, and of course rugby league birthday cards. Can't miss out on them. Search for Rob's Megastore on eBay and find the link in our episode blog post on superleaguepod.com. And very excitingly, SLP listeners can use the code SLP10, that's SLP10 at checkout, and you get 10% off any orders over £5. That's a doubling from last year.
Yeah, and if you're feeling flush and you don't want the 10% back yourself, Rob's Megastore have said that if you put SLP discount at checkout, then you'll give 10% of your order value to SLP rather than taking it back for yourself. So that's another option. That I forgot to write down on the rundown.
Very good. So what the heck are we talking about tonight?
Well, primarily it's Championship this week. We've got 2 rounds into the Championship. We're going to start after the intro section. We're going to start we'll recap our Championship and League One predictions, and we'll share a few fan views on teams at those levels, mostly Championship, but there's a little bit of League One that we'll mention, but like I say, mostly Championship. We'll also go into a bit more depth on the major contenders at the Championship level, some of the major story points, and I didn't finish off right in the rest of it. We'll also recap the weekend's games just gone in the Championship, make our predictions as well for the Super League games coming up. The Challenge Cup is coming up as well, isn't it? The third round, and we've also got some Championship games to talk about in predictions as well. So we've got all of that to look forward to, but we'll before we get into the meat of things, we'll do a few shout outs and talk about a bit of feedback we've had as well. And in this part of the show now, what we're going to do as well is any kind of random fan views that we get on either the news Google form or the match reviews Google form or tweets we get and stuff like that, we will just throw into this part of the show in the opening if there's nowhere else for us to put them. So that's what we'll be doing. I think, first of all, though, Alan, I want to give a huge shout-out and thank you to Karsten, the Swiss Cowboy, and Alan Walker, who've made incredibly kind donations to us this week, as we're back for the new year, that help us with our hosting costs for the podcast. It pretty much means that the only cost to us, Alan, is our time that we give to this hobby of ours, which is talking to everyone about rugby league. So, yeah, Karsten, Alan, your donations are massively appreciated. So, very much thank you to you both there. I think before we talk about some other views we've had in from people, I want to mention our Super Brew predictions competition that's running as always, and the Super League Fantasy competition. Hopefully they'll be more reliable with their updating of stats and scores than they were last year on that competition. You can find out more details if you go on our Twitter and Facebook pages. There's some relatively recent posts for those. Or if you go on the latest post on superleaguepod.com, which by the time of listening to this will be this week's episode blog post, I'll pop links in there for both those competitions if you want to join them before the season kicks off in a couple of days' time. So get on that quickly. And then we've had a bit of feedback. Do you want to give us the first bit of listener feedback we've had?
Yeah, so this is from Mike Webb. It said, not quite from this week, but I wanted to mention how impressive the sportsman's coverage of the Army-Navy Cup tie was. Not the best quality game, but a thrilling finish. Excellent camera angles and replays. I did catch a bit of this one. It feels to me like they're almost like co-productions with our league. I don't know. They feel a little bit like they're sharing expertise.
Are they called In Touch Productions? Is that the name? I don't know where I've got that from. So I've got that from somewhere. The back of my mind, it crawled forward. And I also think, isn't Neville Smith, who used to be the guy at Sky, involved in it somehow? I don't know. These are all things that are just rolling out of the back of my mind to my mouth right now. But basically, I think the sportsman's coverage is done through the same production company that the R-League coverage is done primarily by.
And generally speaking, I've been pretty impressed with the kind of coverage that I've seen, not just on the Sportsman, but BBC stuff has been kind of consistently pretty good. I think Premier Sports, I know some people have had reasonable mixed picture in terms of their presentation, but I think it's been very good so far. And obviously we've got a big thing this weekend with Channel 4 joining the party, haven't we? So, I have to say we've probably never been in a better position in terms of coverage, in terms of outlets. And
when you throw in that there's going to be Women's Super League games live on Sky Sports this year, outside of the playoffs and the finals, and obviously we'll get the cup games as well through BBC. There's so much, isn't there?
I mean, how many games is it this weekend? Like 10, 11, 12?
It is
something stupid.
What have we got? We've got one championship game on Premier Sports on the Monday. We've got games on Sportsman, R League, and BBC Online for the Challenge Cup. Then in Super League, we've got 3 games on Sky and 1 game on Channel 4. So that's like 8 games, isn't it? Live.
So effective, So what we're saying is there's plenty of opportunities to get your feedback in for next week.
Yeah,
definitely.
Mike also added a PS. He said, did. PS Kevin Niguama did score with his first and last touch. Someone, smiley face, mentioned it in their grand final review, just reminding you for a friend. Well, I knew I'd heard it somewhere, Mike, so you've obviously stuck in my mind over the long off season that fact. So thank you for that. Also, getting in touch with a tweet was Simon Lees at Milford Tiger. He said, just listening to the prediction show and surprised how quite dismissive of Cass for the Challenge Cup you were. Finalist last year, and now we have a coach who knows what it takes to win this cup. My first reaction to reading this is I honestly can't remember what I said about Cass, whether they would win the Challenge Cup last year. So I can't remember what I said. I'll tell you one thing. I would say I would be less surprised if Castleford won the Challenge Cup than if they were sort of in the grand final or even the playoff semi-finals this year. I would note that. And maybe we're dismissive because the Challenge Cup sponsors, Betfred, have them only as 7th favourites to win the cup. So, I don't know.
Maybe. It's one of those things that if you're a Super League team, you do have a pretty simple route, don't you? In terms of number of games to win. It's a lot easier than it was a few years ago. So it's always there, I think, in the back of any kind of fan's mind, isn't it? That a trip to Wembley is on the cards this year, and that I think that's kind of behind your left field Huddersfield prediction, isn't it? Slightly, it's that kind of with a bit of a following wind. If you get a good draw, etc., you can be in the semis and one-off game and blah blah blah. So
you probably only need two good wins, and one of those could be lucky, and one of those could be you on a great day and the other team on a bad day, and you've won the competition.
I kind of think, like, if you go back to Catalan winning it in 2018, that feels a bit like that. They had a really good day to kind of, turn over, big upset and everything. And
they were absolutely perfect, weren't they, in the semi-final against St Helens that year?
Yeah.
And then they had the big moments in the final.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that.
Well, Leeds winning it in 2020, none of the favoured teams were there that year. It was Leeds versus Salford. It was, two teams that finished kind of out of the running for the Super League.
It's definitely something that I think every kind of Super League team can kind of convince themselves that they're going to have a good run at it.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why Cass wouldn't have another good run at it, as opposed to Huddersfield, Wakey, Salford, any of the above, really.
I think I'm generally dismissive of anyone winning the cup. Just because I think it's a tough one. It is a tough one to predict, and Simon's made some very valid points for why Cass should be considered a contender as well.
Yeah.
Amongst the 6 more favoured teams by Betfred and the other 4 Super League teams in the competition as well.
Yeah, so we're not, in summary, we're not dismissing it. It's just you're not even in the bag of the draw yet. So we'll see who you get in your first round.
And also, it's if there's just a sliver of winding Rob up, then Simon should be on board with that. If he listened to it and was a bit annoyed and then laughed about it, then we've achieved most of what we're aiming for with that. Do you want to tell, before we get into the bulk of things, do you want to tell people how they can get in touch and get involved with the show?
Yeah, so if you watch any of the multitude of games on this weekend, then you can get in touch with us on social media. It's at Super League Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We're on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Super League Pod. You can email us, superleaguepod@gmail.com, with something a bit longer form, or you can visit superleaguepod.com to get the info on each episode and links to the Google forms for your all-important fan views that we share and discuss on the show. And don't forget to subscribe in whatever podcast app you're listening to us on, and you can leave us a rating and review, 5 stars only, obviously, where you can.
Yep, great stuff. Right, let's leave that opening behind us and move on to some championship talk.
Let's do it.
Okie dokes, Championship and a little bit of League One talk too. Let's start by recapping, Alan, what we guessed might happen this year in the Championship and League One as well. So last week, the prediction show, we talked about this much more, but effectively 51% of the voters picked Featherstone to win the Championship this year. Sarah went for York out of she likes York. David went for Lee. Me and you both went for Featherstone in that competition.
Yeah.
We'll talk a bit more about why when we talk about some of the big contenders, I think, for the title. I mean, we ran a poll that really just included those 2 teams, Featherstone and Lee, and or other. League One, me and you went the same as well. We both went Swinton Lions for that one. David went Keighley because he liked the kit. Sarah went Doncaster because she likes the people at the club. And 24% of people picked Doncaster, but it was a bit more of as the favourites on the voting, but it was a bit more of a wider spread with a lot of teams getting kind of 10 to 25% worth of the 5 or 6 teams were quite popular in League One. So that's where we left you at last week on these competitions. In terms of the poll we ran this week, over the weekend, Alan, I asked people who will win the 2022 Championship. I gave them the options of Featherstone, Lee, or someone else. 60% of people picked Featherstone, 27% of people picked Lee, 13% of people picked someone else. So there you go.
That feels pretty reasonable, particularly after Monday night. It kind of feels roughly where I think the competition is this year, to be frank.
Yeah, and that poll was ran before Monday night, but